Hello everyone, Jonathan Schlack, EAS&Weather here, with a severe weather update. You'll have to excuse me if I sound a little congested and I sound out of breath and if I wheeze a little bit. I'm still fighting a cold, so just bear with me here in the video. So if I start to sound a little congested or wheezy or out of breath, just bear with me. I'm still fighting a little bit of a cold. But anyway, we have a slight risk for severe weather today that encompasses parts of northern Florida, the eastern part of the Florida Panhandle, southeastern Georgia, most of South Carolina, most of North Carolina, and southern Virginia. There are 4 areas where we have a marginal risk for severe weather today. One marginal covering extreme southern Florida and the Florida Keys. Another marginal area covering parts of northern Florida. The third marginal risk area covering, now this can be a little bit confusing for parts of the third marginal risk area. The third marginal risk area, actually on the westernmost extent of the slight, covering a very small sliver of central Florida, a very small sliver of south central and east central Georgia, a very thin area of western South Carolina, a very thin area of southwestern North Carolina, the extreme northeastern corner of Tennessee, eastern North Carolina, southeastern, south central, and southwestern Virginia, and southeastern West Virginia. And finally, the fourth marginal today covers east central Indiana and much of Ohio. So, going to the tornado threat for today, we have a 5% chance of an isolated tornado today that encompasses parts of northwestern Florida, the eastern Florida Panhandle, southeastern Georgia, parts of South Carolina, and central and south central North Carolina. There are 4 areas where we have a 2% chance of an isolated tornado today, one covering extreme south central Florida and the Florida Keys, the second 2% tornado risk area covering parts of north central and northeastern Florida, the third 2% chance of an isolated tornado covering a very small sliver of central Florida, a very small sliver of south central and east central Georgia, a very small sliver of western South Carolina, as well as the coast of east central South Carolina, much of North Carolina, south central and southwestern Virginia, and the very far extreme southeastern corner of West Virginia. And finally, the fourth area where we have a 2% chance of an isolated tornado today covers much of Ohio. So, going to the wind threat for today, we have a 15% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour higher today that covers the eastern part of the Florida Panhandle, northern Florida, southeastern Georgia, much of South Carolina, much of North Carolina, and far southern Virginia. And there are 3 areas where we have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour higher today. One covering parts of northern Florida. A second area where we have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour higher today covers a very thin area of the central Florida Panhandle, south central and east central Georgia. There's a thin area right along the western part of the slight in parts of Georgia, a very thin area of western South Carolina, a very thin area of southwestern North Carolina, the very far extreme northeastern corner of Tennessee, eastern North Carolina, southeastern, central, and southwestern Virginia, and southeastern West Virginia. And finally, there's a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts. The third area where we have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour higher today covers east central Indiana and much of Ohio. So, going to the hail threat for today, there is no hail threat for today. So the main threats here are damaging wind gusts and isolated tornadoes. So, anyway, don't know why. It's stuck. Alright, but anyway, I'm done with those areas anyway, so it doesn't matter if it glitches on me. But in summary, a few tornadoes and sporadic damaging to severe gusts are possible today from the eastern Gulf Coast northward into the Carolinas and southern Virginia. More isolated severe storms may occur across parts of the central Appalachians and Ohio Valley and over southernmost Florida. So, that's all I got for today. So, stay safe in the affected areas today, and I'm not going to show you the day 2 outlook because day 2, there's not even a general thunderstorm in day 2. There's no thunderstorms at all in days 2 and 3. So this is likely the last severe weather outlook video because 2024 is going to come to a close on Tuesday night. 2024 will come to a close Tuesday night, and days 2 and 3, there's no thunderstorms, period. So, anyway. So, stay safe today in the affected areas, and my next severe weather outlook video will be up. There we go. Now it pops back up. Now it pops back up. But anyway, stay safe today, and I will see you. My next severe weather outlook video will not be until after the new year, but it really depends on if Monday and or Tuesday, days 2 and 3 respectively, change dramatically. But I don't see that happening right now, but, have a happy new year, and my next severe weather outlook video will be, unless there's an update today, unless there's some upgrades today, my next severe weather outlook video will not be until the new year, after the new year, and the next marginal, or higher. But again, unless there's an upgrade today to an enhanced, or there's been some shifts around. If there's some upgrades or there's some shifts or both, I'll have an update later. But otherwise, stay safe today, and I will see you when I see you. Take care.